Hey, it's Veronica with Craft Review. Today I'm building a big thread cone rack to hold my Serger thread collection, which is currently completely untamed. This rack has 2 legs and leans against the wall for support. It's sturdy, simple to make, and takes up very little floor space. Just a heads up, if you have small children or rowdy pets, you'll need to find a way to anchor your thread rack when you're done so that it doesn't become a tipping hazard. With that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and start with each of the materials needed, then go through the construction process. There are a lot of small details in today's video, so please feel free to use the timestamps below to skip around. And if you want a written version, there's a link to the blog post in the description. First up, I have my 24 by 48 inch pegboard. You'll usually find these at big hardware stores. The ones that include hooks are extra expensive, so I recommend buying the board on its own and getting the hooks separately. Better yet, since pegboards are so common, you could ask around to see if any of your family or friends has an extra one. I got mine from a neighbor who wasn't using it anymore. Next, there's the wood. This is all 1 3/8 by 1 3/8 lumber. If you've never used lumber before, this will be a great first project, because if you get the wood at Home Depot or Lowe's, for example, they'll cut it for free. I had it cut into 2 54-inch pieces and 2 18-inch pieces, so 4 pieces total. For hardware, I'm using size 8 wood screws. I have 4 3-inch screws and 10 1-inch screws. You don't have to use these exact sizes, by the way, this is just what I'm using. For the pegboard hooks that hold the thread, a 4-inch hook size is perfect for the cones. I used a pack of 100 that I got on eBay. There's an affiliate link in the description for the ones I used. Not only are they a great deal, but they're manufactured in my home state of Missouri. You'll also need some basic tools like a pencil, a ruler, and a drill with some basic drill bits. If you don't have a power drill but you do have a lot of patience, you could get away with just a screwdriver and some interchangeable bits. It'll just take way longer. Altogether, the materials shouldn't cost you more than $75 if you're in the continental US. On to the construction. I have the 2 long pieces along the sides with the 18-inch pieces between them like the rungs of a ladder. The wood I'm using has some unique coloration, so I'm making sure that the side of each of the legs that I want to be seen are both facing in the same direction. The upper edge of the top rung is 5 inches down from the top corners. The bottom edge of the lower rung is 18.5 inches up from the bottom corners. I'm double checking all the measurements, including the distance between the rungs, to make sure that everything is square. Now I'm carefully marking the position of each rung on the face of the edge pieces like this. Then after I've marked each of the 4 intersections, I'm continuing these lines onto the outer sides of the edge pieces. This is to make it easier to mark where all the screws will go. X marks the spot, and the spot doesn't have to be exact, but try to aim for the middle. So now that I've marked where the 4 main screws will go, I'm going to drill some pilot holes. I don't have a sawhorse, but I do have 2 kitchen chairs, so I'll be using that. If you haven't noticed, I'm not a master woodworker, but I do try my best. If you're enjoying this project and you have a second to hit the like button, I'd really appreciate that. I'm going to make sure everything's steady, take all the proper safety precautions, and drill these pilot holes. The size of the pilot hole you need depends on the screw size. I have size 8 screws, and so I'm using a 5/64 bit. But again, these hardware sizes are just a suggestion. They don't need to be exact because thankfully this is not rocket science. Drill the pilot holes all the way through the wood. That'll make it easier to put the screws in. And now that the pilot holes are drilled, I'm lining the pieces of the frame back up using those pencil marks I made earlier. Again, the pencil lines are on the face and the pilot holes are over here on the sides. I could screw them together as is, but first I want a little help holding these pieces square, so I'm going to use a sturdy box as a makeshift jig. Depending on the type of drill you're using, you may also want to prop up the pieces of the frame as you join them. Now I'll just use these pilot holes to bring the frame together using the 3-inch screws. And now that the frame is all in one piece, my next step is to attach the pegboard. To make this a little easier, I'm laying the frame so that the feet are against the wall and making sure that the pretty side of the legs are facing up. Then I'll just put the pegboard on the frame, also face up. The smooth side of the pegboard is traditionally the front, but I like the look of the textured side, so I'm going to be using that as the front. By the way, if you enjoy projects like this and you have a second to subscribe to my channel, I'd love to have you. Wiggle the pegboard around until the top edge of the frame is situated 5 inches down from the top of the board and the sides are even. The sides of the pegboard should each measure 1 5/8 inches away from the frame. A final measurement check shows that everything is in place, so I'm going to use a pencil to mark where I want my pilot holes to go. The screws will be right in the middle of the peg holes, which makes things pretty easy. With a pencil, I'm using the pegboard holes to mark 10 spots on the frame underneath. They're placed throughout the frame to make sure I get everything securely attached. Remove the pegboard and make a pilot hole at each mark. Try to avoid drilling all the way through. Pegboards are usually cut asymmetrically, so you'll notice that even if the pegboard is centered on the frame, the screws aren't perfectly centered on the frame pieces. Just make sure they're not set too close to the edge of the wood. Now that all these pilot holes are drilled, I'll set the board back on top. At this point, I realized that I should have marked the pegboard holes too, because that would have made it much easier to line this back up. And when this is all lined back up, all the pilot holes should be visible through the pegboard holes. I set a sewing pin in each of the pilot holes so that I could find them and move between them faster as I was putting the screws in. Now that all these screws are in, I'm standing the pegboard up on its feet. My thread rack is going to live in a carpeted room, but if I was leaving it on a hard floor, I would put some rubber feet on it at this point. And here I'm attaching the hooks. The hooks can't be placed where the frame is, of course, but there's plenty of room aside from that. I spread out the entire pack of 100 hooks on my board. I'm sure I could fit at least 150 if I arranged them a little closer together. This is my new thread rack with all this beautiful thread and a few of my go-to sewing tools. If you have any questions, please leave them for me below, and if you like this project, please consider checking out the rest of my channel or visiting craftreview.com. Thank you for watching. Bye.